I thought I was making a joke, just one careless sentence at dinner. But the moment the words left my mouth, I saw it. My husband's face, frozen, his friends exchanging awkward glances. I had humiliated him. And now he wasn't speaking to me. I thought I could fix it, that love was enough, but I never expected the conversation that would change everything. I never thought one sentence could change everything, but it did. My name is Mallory, and I'm 32 years old. I grew up in a small town in Michigan, never really having much. Life was always about survival, paying the bills, keeping food on the table, and hoping tomorrow would be a little easier than today. Then I met Derek. He was everything I wasn't: stable, responsible, dependable. A real man. At 37, he had his life together, working as a financial advisor and living comfortably. He swooped in when I needed saving the most, paying off my debt, helping me move into a nice home, and most importantly, being a father figure to my son, Jadon. Jadon was 10 now, and Derek had done more for him than his biological father ever had. In every way that mattered, he was Jadon's real dad. Derek and I had been married for 3 years, and for the most part, things were good. He provided for us, and I made sure our home ran smoothly. I wasn't a perfect wife. I spent money carelessly sometimes, and I knew I wasn't the kind of put-together woman his friends' wives were. But Derek never seemed to care. At least, I thought he didn't. Then came that night. We were out at dinner with his friends, a couple's night. I always felt out of place at these things. The wives were polished, elegant, always talking about their perfect lives, renovating their kitchens, planning vacations, organizing charity events. I couldn't relate. I grew up struggling, hustling. They probably saw me as some kind of outsider. But Derek never made me feel that way, or so I believed. Then someone asked how Derek and I made our marriage work so well. The table went quiet, all eyes on me. I felt this pressure to say something funny, something clever. So I laughed and said, "It's easy when you marry your safety net." The words just slipped out. I thought it was harmless. I thought they'd laugh. But instead, Derek's face turned stone cold. His friends exchanged awkward glances. The laughter at the table died instantly. And in that moment, I realized I had just made a terrible mistake. The ride home was quiet, too quiet. Derek wasn't the type to sulk, but I could feel it. His silence wasn't just silence. It was something heavy, something breaking. I shifted in my seat, stealing glances at him. His jaw was clenched, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tight. The tension in the car was suffocating. "Are you mad?" I finally asked, my voice hesitant. He exhaled through his nose, still staring at the road. "No." Liar. "Derek, come on." I reached for his arm, but he flinched, just slightly, like my touch burned him. That's when I knew this wasn't just a bad joke to him. This was something deeper. When we got home, he didn't say a word. He went straight to our bedroom, shut the door, and didn't come back out. The next morning, he was already awake, already dressed, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. When I walked in, he barely looked at me. "Morning," I said carefully. "Morning," he muttered back, flipping through his phone. I tried to act normal, like nothing had changed. I made breakfast, set the plates on the table, waiting for him to say something. But he didn't. So I did. "Derek, about last night." He put his phone down and finally looked at me. "Do you really see me that way?" The question hit harder than I expected. "What way?" I asked, playing dumb. His expression didn't change. "As your safety net." I let out a nervous laugh. It was a joke. Was it? The way he said it, the disbelief in his voice, made my stomach twist. I swallowed hard. "Derek, you know I love you." "Do I?" He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Because last night it sounded like you love what I provide, not me." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Because what was I supposed to say? He wasn't wrong. Hadn't I thought the same thing, deep down? That I loved him, but I also loved the life he gave me. I scrambled to fix it. I didn't mean it like that. You know how I am. I just say things without thinking sometimes. He let out a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, you do. Then he stood up, grabbed his keys, and walked out the door. And for the first time since we got married, I wasn't sure if he was coming back. Derek didn't come home until late that night. When he finally walked through the door, he barely looked at me. Just a nod, like I was a stranger in my own home. Then he went upstairs, shutting the bedroom door behind him. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't take the silence anymore. I marched up after him, pushing the door open. We need to talk. He was standing by the closet, pulling off his tie. I'm tired, Mallory. And I'm tired of being treated like a villain over a stupid joke. His hands stilled, his shoulders stiffening. Slowly, he turned to face me. A joke. Yes, I threw my hands up. Derek, I love you. I never meant to embarrass you. Why are you making this into something it's not? His eyes darkened. Because maybe it is something. My stomach twisted. What is that supposed to mean? He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Just answer one thing for me. If I lost everything tomorrow, if I lost my job, the house, the money, would you still be here? The question hit like a slap. Because I hesitated. It was only for a second, but it was long enough for him to see it. Derek let out a dry, bitter laugh. Wow. Panic flared in my chest. That's not fair. I love you, but I also love the life we built together. Is that a crime? Love, he shook his head. Mallory, love isn't just enjoying the good parts. Love is staying even when things fall apart. I never said I wouldn't stay, I argued. But you hesitated. Silence. A thick, suffocating silence. Then his voice softened, almost like he was realizing it in real time. You don't want a husband, Mallory. You want security. His words ripped through me, leaving me raw, exposed. I hated him for saying it, hated him more because he might be right. Tears burned at my eyes. That's not true. Isn't it? He took a slow step forward. Then prove it. Let's have a baby. My heart stopped. What? His voice was steady. You've always said you didn't want another child. But why? You had one with a man who walked away, but now, when you're with someone who actually loves you, you won't even consider it. A lump formed in my throat. That's different. Is it? His eyes searched mine. Or are you just afraid that if I lost everything, you'd be stuck raising another kid alone? I didn't have an answer. Because the truth. That was exactly what I was afraid of. And Derek knew it. He shook his head, stepping back. That's what I thought. I opened my mouth, desperate to fix this. Derek, please. But he was already walking out, leaving me standing there, knowing I had just lost a piece of him I might never get back. Derek didn't come home that night. I waited, I called, I texted, nothing. By the time the sun came up, my heart was pounding in my chest, my mind racing with possibilities. Was he just cooling off somewhere? Was he with a friend? Or was he already making a decision that would change everything? When the front door finally opened the next morning, I jumped up from the couch, my breath catching in my throat. Where were you? I blurted out. Derek didn't even look at me. He just walked past me, his expression unreadable. I followed him. Derek, I was worried sick. Why didn't you answer me? He set his keys on the counter. I needed time to think. My stomach twisted. Think about what? He turned then, his eyes locking onto mine with a look I didn't recognize. About whether this marriage even makes sense anymore. His words knocked the air from my lungs. What? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Derek exhaled, rubbing a hand down his face. I don't know, Mallory. I don't know if this works. Panic clawed at my chest. You don't mean that. We're just fighting. Couples fight, Derek. It doesn't mean you throw everything away. He studied me for a long time, his face unreadable. Then he spoke. I saw your emails. The room spun. I froze. What? I managed to croak. Derek held up my phone. Matt. The name hit like a gunshot. Jadden's father, my ex. The man who had abandoned me when I was pregnant and only recently came crawling back, offering financial help. Help that I, in my desperation, had considered taking, without telling Derek. Blood drained from my face. Derek, I can explain. His expression was ice. Can you? Because what I saw was you thanking him for sending money. You let another man step into a role that I have filled for 10 years, Mallory, and you didn't even tell me. My throat closed. It wasn't like that, I whispered. Things have been tense between us, and I thought if Matt helped out, it would take some of the pressure off you. Derek let out a hollow laugh. Pressure? He shook his head, eyes dark with betrayal. Mallory, I have never once complained about taking care of Jadden. He is my son in every way that matters, and you went behind my back. Tears welled in my eyes. I wasn't trying to replace you. Then what were you doing? His voice cracked. Because it sure as hell feels like you were hedging your bets, like you were lining up a backup plan. A safety net. The words hung in the air, unspoken but suffocating. And I had nothing to say. Because maybe, deep down, he was right. Derek ran a hand through his hair, his chest rising and falling unevenly. I don't even know who you are anymore. A sob escaped my lips. I love you, Derek. His expression hardened. No, Mallory, you love what I do for you. You love that I make your life easier. But do you love me? The question shattered something inside me. Because I didn't know the answer. Silence stretched between us, thick and unbearable. Then, Derek took a deep breath and spoke the words that ended everything. I want a divorce. I don't remember how long I stood there after Derek said the words. I want a divorce. It felt like my whole body had turned to stone. My brain refused to process it. Divorce? No, that wasn't possible. He was just angry. This was just a fight. We'd fix it. We had to. Derek, please. My voice cracked, but he didn't waver. He just stood there, tired, drained, like he had already accepted something I hadn't. I'm done, Mallory. I shook my head. No, you're not. We can fix this. We just need time. He let out a breath, his hands gripping the edge of the counter like he needed to hold on to something. Time won't change what I know now. My chest tightened. What do you mean? His jaw clenched, his voice lower now. I mean, I've been wondering for a while if you truly love me or if you just love what I give you. But now I don't have to wonder anymore. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. But I couldn't because some dark part of me, some part I had been ignoring for years, knew he was right. And Derek, he saw it now too. He walked to the hallway, grabbed his overnight bag. The one I hadn't even noticed was already packed. Panic flooded me. You're leaving. He didn't look at me. I already did. That hurt worse than if he had screamed at me. I rushed toward him, my hands shaking. Derek, wait, please just stay tonight. Let's talk. He stopped at the door, his back still to me. We've done enough talking. I reached out, but I didn't touch him, because I already knew he wasn't mine anymore. And then he walked out. And this time, he wasn't coming back. I thought the worst part would be him leaving. It was. The worst part was everything that came after. The house felt empty without him, too big, too cold. The bed was the worst. I kept waking up in the middle of the night, reaching for someone who wasn't there. And then came the reality of what I had lost. Bills started piling up. The mortgage, the utilities, Jadden's school tuition, all things Derek had handled without me ever worrying. I checked my bank account, and my stomach dropped. I had less than $500 to my name. I thought about calling Derek, begging him to come home. But then I saw the divorce papers on the kitchen table, already signed. He wasn't coming back. I had to figure this out alone. I started looking for jobs the next day. Retail, office assistant, even going back to being a nail tech, but every application felt like a slap to the face. I hadn't worked in years. I had no skills, no real experience, and the few interviews I got, disasters. No one wanted to hire a woman who had been dependent on her husband for everything. And Jadden, he could tell something was wrong. "Mom, where Derek?" he asked one night at dinner. I forced a smile. "He's just staying somewhere else for a while." Jadden frowned. "Are you and Derek breaking up?" My heart clenched. "No, sweetheart, everything's fine." It was a lie. Nothing was fine. 2 weeks later, I hit rock bottom. I had no money left. The mortgage payment was overdue. The bills kept coming. I knew what I had to do. I had to sell the house. I called a realtor and put it on the market. And for the first time, reality hit me like a truck. Without Derek, I had nothing, no safety net, no backup plan, no future. I had spent years relying on him, never thinking about what would happen if he was gone. And now I was falling. And this time, no one was there to catch me. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the stack of bills in front of me. The numbers blurred together, but the message was clear. I couldn't afford this life anymore. Not without Derek. I used to think that love was about what someone could give you, about comfort, security, and never having to worry. But now, as I faced the reality of my situation, I realized something horrifying. I had never built a life for myself. I had borrowed one. Derek had been my safety net, and now that he was gone, I was crashing to the ground with nothing to catch me. The house sold quickly. I packed up our things, every box feeling like a funeral for the life I had lost. The memories haunted me. Derek fixing the leaky faucet, Derek dancing with Jadden in the living room, Derek kissing my forehead every morning. I had ruined it all. I took Jadden and moved in with my mother 2 states away. She didn't say "I told you so," but I could see it in her eyes. The first few weeks were the hardest. I applied for jobs every day, desperate for anything. I finally landed a part-time job at a local salon, sweeping floors and booking appointments. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I learned how to budget for the first time, learned how to stretch a paycheck, learned that I had spent my whole life expecting someone else to save me. And now, there was no one left but me. One night, as I was tucking Jadden into bed, he looked up at me and asked, "Do you think Derek misses us?" Tears burned in my eyes, but I forced a smile. "I don't know, baby." But I did know. I knew Derek had loved us, but love wasn't enough. I had mistaken security for love, and by the time I realized it, it was too late. I wanted to text him, to call him, to tell him I was changing, that I finally saw what he had tried to show me all along. But I didn't, because some mistakes can't be undone. And some people don't wait for you to figure yourself out. I lost Derek, and I had no one to blame but myself. Do you think Derek was right to leave? Or should Mallory have gotten another chance? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more shocking real-life confessions. And trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.